everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us. I am Elise Barrett, Chair of United Way of Greater Greensboro's Women United Affinity Group, known as Women United. As members of our community, we are leaders who are focused on empowering and inspiring women to lead community-wide change that ends poverty. Together, we represent more than 100 local employers and have helped United Way raise more than $4 million. With the support of the community, Women United has made a tremendous impact over the years, including this year, hosting United Way's annual community speaker series, Keynote Misty Copeland, the first African-American principal dancer for the American Ballet Theater. This event was held virtually in September. At that event, youth from area schools and local citizens were invited to learn more about our community's most critical issues and be inspired by Misty and how United Way, its donors, and community partners are working together to create solutions for our neighbors in need. Women United also hosted the 11th annual Handbags to End Poverty's virtual event on February 3rd. Community doorstep drives were held safely throughout the year for donations of vintage and new handbags. These items were auctioned during the event and proceeds supported United Way's work to end poverty. This past year's event included a special item, which was a priceless pair of autographed Missy Copeland Point Ballet shoes. We are grateful to the community for their leadership and generosity to make this event happen. Other types of Women United outreach include volunteer opportunities at United Way's Family Success Centers that educate and strengthen women's knowledge and skills to obtain better jobs and careers. These volunteer roles include mock interviews, public speaking, coaching, educational workshops, GED tutoring, job shadowing, clothing and cleaning supply drives, and writing notes of encouragement. Whether you've just an hour to share a few times a year or on a regular basis, we have opportunities virtually to lift up another woman in our community on the path to self-sufficiency. Other volunteer opportunities include engagement and support of United Way's Mentoring Matters initiative for young girls to help them gain self-confidence and reach their goals. These are just a few examples of United Way's impact in our community. We volunteer with United Way because we are excited about United Way's work that is ending poverty in our community, and we believe in this mission. We are pleased to be hosting today's Lunch and Learn, and we'll focus on our emotional health and resiliency during COVID-19 and beyond. Mental health is something that is not always discussed, but it is so crucial to our well-being. This time during the pandemic has heightened the awareness, opportunity for Women United to lead this important discussion as we care for ourselves and one another. We hope that you will find today's program to be informative and inspirational. Please share what you've learned today with others to also help someone else. At this time, I'd like to introduce Melanie Neal, the Vice Chair of Women United, who will moderate today's event. Melanie.
Thank you, Elise. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here with you and everyone who has joined us today. I have the privilege of moderating today's event, which will feature two exceptional local professional women. They have caring hearts and have dedicated their careers to help improve the lives of others. This pandemic has caused loss of everything we are familiar with, including our daily structure and social contacts. It has led to financial despair, illness, and death. Our presenters today will remind and teach us new ways to be nurturing and intentional with the care of ourselves, our family members, friends, and coworkers. We are all navigating our lives in this uncharted territory. We can learn today how to monitor and improve our daily routines and patterns to live freer of these overwhelming burdens. I am Melanie Neal, and I have the privilege to serve as the Executive Director of Guilford Metro 911. In this role, I have witnessed my colleagues at Guilford Metro 911 respond to the COVID-19 pandemic in remarkable ways for nearly a year. In addition, our local frontline first responders healthcare workers, and therapists and counselors are true heroes who are caring for our local community during this year and every day. I want to say thank you for their tireless efforts to make our community safer and healthier. There is more work to be done with education and support for emotional wellness. We must continue to break down the barriers and stigma of asking and receiving help. We must support each other in this process as women. So, as a community, what can we do to promote emotional wellness and resiliency? I think today's speakers will provide many answers to this question. Today, you will hear from Cherie Timmons, who is a health and wellness coach at Cherie Timmons Coaching, LLC. She is a licensed clinical social worker, certified employee assistance professional, certified health coach, and yoga teacher. Her licensing and certifications have allowed her to work in a variety of settings from schools, nonprofits, government agencies, healthcare organizations, hospitals, as well as private practice. Cherie is passionate about helping women become their fullest expression of themselves, teaching them how to transform limiting beliefs into empowering truths so they can live with more happiness and fulfillment. We will also hear from Dr. Nanette Funderburk. Dr. Funderburk is a licensed clinical mental health counselor supervisor and the owner of the Social and Emotional Learning Group, PLLC, a counseling private practice in Greensboro, North Carolina. She provides counseling and training to individuals, groups, and organizations. Dr. Funderburk assists individuals with overwhelming life problems, recognizing root emotions related to life issues, employing emotion management skills, responsible decision-making skills, and interpersonal relationship skills. So let's get things started. Please join me in welcoming Cherie Timmons.
Melanie, thank you so much. I'll just pull up my slides here. It is such a pleasure to be here with all of you this afternoon as we explore how to foster emotional wellness and resiliency during COVID-19. She stood in the storm, and when the wind did not blow her away, she adjusted her sails. I find this to be such a powerful quote. And to me, it's such a great description of what resiliency can look like for each of us. We stand in the storm and we can call upon our resiliency to help us stay steady and not blow away so that we can face the challenges that are coming towards us. Each of you have within you the strength to weather the fear, the uncertainty, and the challenges that come your way. It's my goal today to help you understand how you can access that strength so that you can practice strategies that will help nurture and protect you, as well as help you see where growth is possible so that you can call upon that solid foundation, create and strengthen that each day so that when chaos or challenges come, you will bend and not break. The first step in doing that is to rethink self-care. Rethinking self-care as essential to your well-being. In my way of thinking, self-care is no longer optional. It's not something you can postpone and still expect to feel whole, fulfilled, and resilient. In my 20 plus years of supporting clients through changes, losses, and challenges, I've come to see self-care as having a dual purpose, as first aid and as foundation. So I'll explain what I mean about that. As first aid, these are the strategies of self-care that we can use in the moment. When something happens to us, in front of us, that affects us, that creates feelings of anxiety or stress, anger or resentment, These are things that we can do, actions we can take in the moment to help calm your mind, reduce your heart rate, and think more clearly so that you can respond instead of react. Self-care as foundation. This involves consistent daily practices of self-care that increase your resilience reserves, kind of what you're holding in the tank, right? Your reserves. And as you practice these daily, they help you to create a stronger foundation, help you to be more steady and supported during challenging times. So digging in a little bit more here, self-care as first aid. In the moment when something happens, whether it's as you're trying to leave for your day, maybe take your child to school or to run an errand, and something gets spilled or something gets broken or something gets misplaced and you can't leave yet, right? It can heighten our anxiety. Or if you're on a challenging call with a client or having a disagreement with a loved one or partner, maybe you've received upsetting news about your own health, or maybe that of somebody else or a family member. Whatever that in the moment circumstance might be, these are 4 strategies that I want to talk about that can help you in those moments. The first is to take deep breaths. And the reason this is the top of my list on this slide is when we shift away from all the busyness, chaos around us, and truly take a breath in, feel the breath enter your body, feel the breath exit your body, it brings you into the present moment. And some of those emotions that I mentioned earlier, feeling anxious or resentful, those can happen because of what we're thinking about. If we are thinking about how a meeting went yesterday, that maybe it didn't go well, or something that happened yesterday or a couple weeks ago that you're kind of second guessing or you're wishing it went differently, that can bring about feelings of sadness or disappointment. And when we think ahead to things that we're maybe concerned about or worried, that can spark that anxiety and stress. So the breath work here, the beauty of the breath is it brings you into the present moment. So you are able to put aside for a moment that fight or flight response that you might be feeling, and it helps to trigger your relaxation response. So breath is a perfect self-care as first aid strategy. The second I wanted to talk about is setting boundaries. And you may hear that or read about setting boundaries or setting limits with others. I want you to think about it in 3 ways. 1, setting boundaries on your space. Because of what's happening in the moment, do you need to move where you are? If someone's saying something to you that you're finding upsetting, stepping out of the room, politely excusing yourself, giving yourself permission to do that. Also recognizing, setting boundaries on your time. As women, we tend to want to do and help and serve, and we can sometimes do that where we're stretched too thin. So where do you need to start saying no regarding your time and realize that it's actually saying yes to you, right? It's saying yes so that you can feel less stressed and pulled thin, or so that you can have 30 minutes to yourself to eat your lunch uninterrupted, whether that's from coworkers or being interrupted from children, whatever that might be. So boundaries on your time. And then the third is boundaries on your energy. We are all blessed to be around people in the work that we do, in our families. And there are some of those people that after we're interacting with them or on the phone with them, we feel exhausted, right? That it feels like our energy has been zapped. We feel maybe just foggy and done. because they really pull a lot on our emotional, mental energy, even physical energy. So again, giving yourself permission here to limit those phone conversations to shorter if that's possible. It's not that you have to give these people up in your life, but what can you do that helps to, in the moment, set a boundary for you on your energy? Moving your body, that again, it speaks to the pulling you into the present moment, but from something that's more active than only the breathing. Moving your body can be as simple as standing up, right? Right now, you could stand up, you could do some stretches. You could, if yoga is something you're familiar with, you could do some easy yoga poses to start moving your body. If it's a time that you do have some more time, maybe it's walking around the room that you're in, or the building you're in, or even getting outside to take a walk outside, excuse me. I know for me, I notice that when my energy kind of gets tight, I need to get up and move to try to shift that a little bit. Excuse me. And I'm getting so excited, I'm losing my voice. Hold on a second. Pardon me. When the weather's been cold, I have even just kind of put on my walking shoes and walked around the house. I think my dog's been very confused because she thinks we're going for a walk, but I'm kind of just doing laps around the house just to shift that energy to kind of do something in the moment. So moving your body. And then the other strategy I want to identify in the moment that you can do is taking rest. I realize this may look different at different times. Anytime you can truly sit somewhere, put your feet up, even close your eyes for 3 minutes, there's benefit in that type of rest. Know also that when you leave something that's required a lot of effort, maybe a meeting that's had a lot of problem solving and strategy finding for you, and that has been a lot of energy for you, what can you do to do something that might not require as much effort? It might not be a nap that you can get, but maybe if you play the piano and you have access to that, and that's just something that comes so naturally to you, or maybe reading something, doing something that feels that it does not require much effort can really balance out what you've been doing or thinking or working on. So each of these are in the moment strategies, thinking about self-care as first aid, again, so that you can respond to what's happening instead of reacting. And then looking at the foundation, what are you doing on a daily basis to build those reserves? As I shared earlier, self-care truly is not optional anymore. With what we've each experienced throughout the past year, we need to be doing things that are protecting and nurturing us. And these are some strategies I'll offer. One is doing one thing at a time. I would imagine some of you on this call today have used the word multitasking, right? Feeling we can multitask and help our child with their homework while we're reading ingredients for what we're making for dinner, or talking on the phone with a client or a coworker while we're trying to respond to some emails before the end of the day. And although it feels like we're making some progress, there's truly a myth with multitasking. What's happening in our brain is that it's switching from one task to the next. I like to think about it as a train. That's when the tracks switching to the reading ingredients for dinner, then it's switching back to the math problem for homework, and switching back and forth. And it actually uses up more energy and in the end, more time. So one strategy to start practicing on a regular basis is doing one thing at a time. I know that can be a hard habit to break. Practicing mindfulness, this certainly links back to what I said about breathing. And mindfulness is certainly beneficial in the moment, but what can you do on a daily basis to help you build that resiliency? For you, it might be breathing or exercises that involve your breath. For others, it might be taking a nature walk without your phone, right? Tuck that in a pocket or leave it at home before you take a walk and get out and do something mindful like that. It could be doing, I mentioned yoga earlier, or whatever that physical practice might be for you that gets you into the present moment. That's really the focus of any mindfulness practice. And then building that strong foundation also includes examining your mindset. Sometimes we can get in our own way because of the story that comes up. When we're faced with a challenge, we talk about, I can't, I will never be able to, I won't be able to, right? Those negative, those scarcity, words of scarcity and lack come up. And what I invite you to think about is how you can catch yourself, how you can notice, as self-awareness, notice yourself saying those words, and how can you adjust that? How can you make over your mindset? An example might be if, some challenges are coming up with bills, maybe you paid a bill late or something. Instead of switching to, I'll never be good at managing my money, instead it can become a message of, I'm taking steps each day to learn how to better budget my money, right? So what can we say to really speak of abundance, speak of growth in that moment? Because your thoughts really do create your reality. And when you can learn to switch from that negative to the positive, you're going to see things differently. I love, this is another quote: when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And then the fourth strategy I want to talk about here in building resiliency foundation is owning your strengths. And this ties into mindset because it's certainly thinking about yourself. So what can you be doing each day to notice something that you did well? Maybe it's that you made a plan for the day and you stuck to it. Maybe it's that you made time to talk with a child and make them feel safe. Maybe it's really helping to get creative with something at work or that a friend was managing and needing help with. At the end of the day, look back and identify at least one thing that you can say you did well. And that can become a habit that will truly start to build your resilience reserves. In addition to the self-care as first aid and foundation, I certainly want to emphasize we practice self-care. We don't perfect it. That makes me think so much of what I've learned in my yoga training. It's a practice, right? It's not a perfect. The same thing goes for self-care. And so I invite you to think about where growth is possible. For some of you, it may be, thinking about what can I do in the moment? What are those first aid things that I can do when I'm running late getting somewhere or I get a difficult phone call? For others of you, it may be something sparked when I talked about what you can do each day to build your reserves, doing one thing at a time, right? That might be one of them. And then I also want to speak to the gifts in the chaos. I recognize that in the thick of it, it's hard to see something positive when there's been a challenge, a big change in our lives, or a loss. And let this just plant the seed when some time has passed and maybe there's some perspective. What are the gifts that you found in the chaos? For myself, thinking over the past year, it's certainly been having more time with my family. My son was home a lot for school. My husband's working from home. We have our lunches together all the time now. For others of you, it may be because you're not commuting to work, you've spent less money on gas and less wear and tear on your car. For others, maybe it's you've grown stronger in your faith or your belief system. So take time to notice what those gifts might be. And think about the people in your life that are resilient, that wear this well every time you're around them during challenging times. the more that we spend time around resilient people, it helps model that for us, and helps kind of even help us rise to the occasion and see how we can be doing it in a way that protects and nurtures us. And then lastly, I want to mention, no matter how today went, or even the last 5 minutes went, you can always begin again. You can begin again in the moment. You can begin again tomorrow, and not as a burden, like, here we go again, but as an opportunity. Because you are worth the quiet moment. You are worth the deeper breaths, and you are worth the time it takes to slow down, be still, and rest. Thank you all for this wonderful opportunity this afternoon. I hope what I had to share has helped you see your strength and learn how to improve your emotional wellness and resiliency as you navigate any challenges that come your way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cherie. Wow, there are so many great ideas that she gave us today. And the two favorites on mine were the train track analogy for switching your thoughts. I mean, I will not forget that. That's a great analogy. And then I love to start with, you will bend and not break. I think that's so important for us to realize that we can bend and not break. We can give. And I really enjoyed that. So now let's hear from Dr. Nanette Funderburk about additional ways to help us get unstuck from our patterns of anxiety, fear, and depression and manage our lives in a more healthy way. This mission of her professional practice is empowering others with practical skills to handle life's issues. I love the quote on Dr. Funderburk's website that said, "Look for something positive each day, even if you have to look a little harder. Let challenges make you strong." Dr. Funderburk, take it away.
Thank you so much. I am so glad to be here today. And this is a fabulous event. So keep up the good work, you all. So let me share the screen. All right. Okay, come on, do what I told you to do. Okay, here we go. All righty. So I, was looking at, all this stuff is going on. How are we going to stay well mentally? We were working so hard to stay well physically during all of this. Now, how do we stay well mentally so that we can continue to move through this process? So that's what we'll be talking about today. So I'm going to ask the question that I love to ask people. How are you? And I ask people this in sessions sometimes, and they'll say, what do y'all think they say? I'm fine. That's exactly what they say. And then they'll do, I'm fine, how are you? And I'm like, this session isn't about me, this session's about you. So let's go back and really answer that question. How are you? Because this is, I know what the deal is. Have y'all seen that? I can't remember which drug commercial, but there's the drug commercial for depression where the lady is walking around with the smiley face mask, but you see her somber face underneath that. Yeah, a lot of the times that's us. Okay, this is another slide I love to use. How are you? I'm fine, right? Let's look a little closer. Read that. I'm depressed. I'm hurt. I'm frustrated. I'm aggravated. I'm broken. I'm misunderstood, rejected. And we could probably have 100 more words up here to describe how fine we are, right? So hopefully if this presentation does nothing else for you today, I hope that it will at least bring an awareness to when you answer this question of, hey, how are you doing? And you do that knee jerk of I'm fine, I hope you at least kind of step back and say, okay, let me assess, how am I really? If you really are fine, then fine, wonderful. But if you're not fine, let's check that. Let's address that, because you can be fine. We can get back to there, but we're not going to get back there if we don't address it. Okay, let's keep going. So mental wellness overview, just really quickly, what is mental wellness? It includes our biological, psychological, and social well-being. It's all of those three things together that are a part of mental wellness. Also, it affects how we think, feel, and act. So the way you're feeling doesn't just come from, it's not just osmosis. It comes from somewhere. Every feeling comes from a thought. So we've got to think about what we're thinking about, and don't believe everything that you think. Let me say that again. I'm going to quote myself. Think about what you're thinking about, and don't believe everything that you think, because everything that we think is not true. And those lies that we're believing in our thoughts, that then impacts our feelings. So we'll walk around feeling mopey, icky, ucky, and then that changes our action. Now I don't feel like doing anything. Now I'm not going to the baseball game. Even when I could get out, I'm not going to get out, all because of the stinking thinking that we had in the first place. Okay, so that's another one. Y'all should take that one too. Remember that one. Alrighty, and it also helps to determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. So, when we have that stinking thinking, you are much more likely to be snippy snappy with your kids or your coworkers, or make the wrong food choice. We'll talk about that a little bit more in another slide. Because a lot of us, we're trying to exercise. We have the what do they call it? The quarantine 15 or something like that. A lot of us have picked that up, and so after you have the stinking thinking, then you just feel like, oh, I need that strawberry red velvet cake from Cheesecakes by Alex. That just came to me by osmosis, right? I know nothing about that cheesecake. But it's because of the thoughts. We got to change the thoughts, and we can change the thoughts. We can insert thoughts, just like advertisers do. They tell us when to go buy the big fry. Y'all have been driving down the street and you see the McDonald's truck driving by and it's got the big fry or the big coffee on the side. Then there just happens to be a McDonald's on every exit. So now here you are stopping to go get some fries, and you're going to get other stuff too. They know that. That's why they inserted that thought in your mind. So just like they insert thoughts, they've spent millions, billions on learning the psychology of how do I influence thinking. They just influenced your thinking. So let's just pilfer off of the billions that they spent and take that. We already know that just by putting the thought in your mind, it starts to shift the way you feel, and then it will shift the way you act. That's some of what Cherie was talking about with, check your thoughts. We've got to check that because it matters. It's not just fluff, it matters. Okay, some contributing factors. Biology. The biology is what the biology is. So biological factors, genes, and brain chemistry that can influence our mental wellness. Life experiences such as trauma or abuse. And it just bugs me to no end when people will say things like, oh, that happened a long time ago. That happened in childhood. Aren't you over that by now? And I want to give them this kind of face when they say something like that, because I'm like, no, that happened when you're a child. When the things that happened when you were a child, those are the things that happened when you didn't have the brain capacity that you do right now as an adult. You didn't have the ability to pull on some of the resources that you can now as an adult. So it's like the things that happen as a child, yeah, if they're not addressed, they can stick with you. It doesn't mean that you can't, doesn't mean you can't be resilient and overcome that, but you need help being resilient from that. So if y'all can't tell, that's a pet peeve of mine. I can't stand when somebody is like, aren't you over that by now? Grr. Okay, let's keep going. Family history of mental health problems. that is a contributing factor too. So that's that nurture side. The top bullet is nature, the biology. The bottom bullet is the nurture. And some of that second bullet can be the nurture too, as well. That nature versus nurture argument there, you may have heard that phrase before. The nurture piece is your environment and how it helps you, or how it doesn't help you, but what does it surround you with? Okay. Warning signs, warning. If you see any of these signs, you may have a mental health condition, or at least you might be leaning towards. It doesn't mean you 100% are diagnosable, but you might be leaning in that direction, okay? Well, it's when you start to seeing these things stack up, that's when you want to say, okay, let me maybe go talk to a professional about this. Okay, if you're eating or sleeping too much or too little, so it doesn't mean if you always ate a lot or always ate a little. It's when there's a shift. Is there a change in your appetite or in your sleeping? Pulling away from people and usual activities. So, even though your friends were getting together on the Zoom game night, you were like, okay, I'll get there if I can, which means you're probably not going. So when you start pulling away from those things that would normally bring you joy, that can be a sign. Having unexplained aches and pains. If you've got a headache every day, or if you've got, a lot of times anxiety can show up with GI issues, those stomach issues. The headaches a lot of times will come with those stress headaches when you get this tension back here in your neck. If you're tense all up in here, then likely a headache is going to come, right? So something's stressing you out. And that's why I always say mental health and physical health are intimately connected. It's very hard to be well in one area when you're not well in the other, because these thoughts I'm having, they might be making me tense. So now I'm tense and now there's a headache. That's mental and physical health right there. Okay. So, and then when you go to the physician and they can't really diagnose you with anything because they're like, there's no organic cause to this. That's a hint for you. Feeling helpless or hopeless. So the helpless piece is, I don't know what to do. How do I do this? I can't do this. The hopeless piece is, I know what to do, but why try? Why bother? Those two make me a little nervous when I hear those sentiments coming from people in session, because I'm worried more about depression and I'm worried more about where their thoughts are going to go and then where their actions are going to go from there. Okay, smoking, drinking, or using drugs. That can be street drugs or over-the-counter drugs. And I know I'm getting ready to step on some toes right now, so go ahead and put your, what do they call them, the steel toe boots on. You can include in this category sugar and caffeine. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I do it to everybody when I have this type of presentation. So it's not just you. Don't take it personally. But sugar and caffeine, when you're using them more than normal, or you're noticing an increase or uptick in it, or you're using it to like get you going, that's a sign that we need to take heed to. And then being angry or sad, seemingly for no reason. And sometimes you'll kind of judge yourself like, well, why am I feeling this way? I've got a job. I didn't lose my job in COVID, or I didn't get sick, or nobody I knew got sick. And so why am I mad? Why am I sad? Those are warning signs that something is going on. It's just you can't put your finger on it. That doesn't mean that something's not going on. So don't judge yourself for that. Sometimes we are really, really mean to ourselves. Okay. And then no motivation to do the things that were once enjoyable. Okay. All right. So with COVID though, there have been grief, losses and grief. There's been a lot of that, unfortunately. There's definitely been the grief of losing actual people. The over 500,000 deaths is unfathomable. It's like a movie, but there have been other losses as well. We've lost our connections, our typical ways of connecting with people. We haven't lost connection altogether, but we've lost our typical ways of connecting with people. Some have lost jobs. Some have just lost their routine. These sorts of losses, especially over the year plus time that we've been in this thing, those things start to stack up. So how do you deal with the grief of it all? First of all, recognize that the grief is a symbol of your humanity. Grief for any person is a symbol of our humanity, and one that does not need to be negated, just managed. We just need to manage it, okay? We must acknowledge the feeling before we can properly grieve. So, like I was saying at the beginning with the how are you and the I'm fine, you got to acknowledge that you're not fine before you can address anything. So what does grieving a loss mean? A lot of times, when I've talked to people and I would ask them, have you grieved that loss? They kind of know that they have not, but they don't know how to do it. So let's look at that briefly. Grieving a loss is, number one, what we've already talked about, which is acknowledging the feeling. Do not act as if there is nothing wrong. We can't act as if there is nothing wrong. When we start to act as if there's nothing wrong, then that's where we really start to go left a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, express the feeling. Talk about it. Write about it. Draw about it. Go back to kindergarten. Y'all have heard of that book, Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten? Take your naps, share, go play sometimes. Everything we needed to know, we learned in kindergarten. So sometimes going back to kindergarten is drawing. And you don't have to be an artist to draw. You can just pull out the pen and draw circles. I did an exercise, or one of my students did an exercise excuse me, did an exercise on lowering your heart rate. And so just listening to some slow, calm music and drawing circles on a page, uninterrupted circles. So putting your pen down on the page and don't lift it up for 2 minutes will lower your heart rate. So when our heart rate is up, it's easy for us to feel anxious or to feel like I don't feel very good. So simply something that simple can help us to pay attention to ourselves. So those last two words, crying and yelling, some people don't like to cry. Some people feel like it's weakness to cry. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, my professional opinion is that is not true. That's I don't know where that came from, but that's not true. Crying can be the epitome of strength. It definitely is addressing that there is something going on with me and I'm getting it out. I'm not saying you want to be there 100% of the time, but that is a way of expression. It's a form of expression. Yelling is a form of expression. Of course, you want to do that in an appropriate setting, but getting it out is something that's definitely necessary. And sometimes, when you think about yelling, I can think about angry people yelling. So that's because anger gives us an energy. We breathe faster, our heart rate goes up. Sometimes adrenaline can start to flow after your blood pressure goes up. All of that, you get this energy with being angry. So since you've got that energy, go use it. Go use it. So yell, throw a ball up against the side of the house, make sure it's your house, or do whatever it is. Exercise hard too. If you're feeling that anger, if you're feeling whatever inside, you have the energy to go hard. Okay. Also honor the memory. If you're actually grieving the loss of a person, or for some even a pet, honor the memory of that person. So, allow yourself to think about the things that person enjoyed, and maybe start to collect those things. So I remember watching a lady on TV whose mother had passed, but her mom always loved robins, the red-bird robin. So every time she sees a robin, she thinks of her mother, but now she collects things that have robins on them. So that's a way to honor that memory. You're looking at that person, you're looking back at that person and remembering them for the way that they lived and not the way that they died. Honor that memory, then put those things in a place of honor sometimes, okay? But just don't act like it never happened, because it did happen and your brain knows it happened. And that's why some of these things kind of keep coming back up to you. And then repeat all of this stuff as necessary. There is not a timeline for grief. So the person or the people who are telling you you should be over it by now, I give you permission to ignore them in that statement, because there's not a timeline for that. It tends to come, it tends to like ebb and flow. There will be waves of it. And then there will be times where you're fine and you really are fine. But when it comes back up, go back to honoring the go back to honoring the memory, go back to taking care of yourself and really being kind to yourself, okay? A lot of what has gone on has caused us to isolate. Definitely if you've had COVID-19 symptoms, you've been isolating, but also we've all been isolating, right? I mean, I'm sitting in my home right now. You all are all sitting in your individual places right now. So we're isolating. And how do you connect when that happens? It is different. So first of all, keep a schedule. Just because you are at home, it doesn't mean that you can't wake up at the same time. It doesn't mean that you can't have your lunch hour. It doesn't mean that you can't have your break times and when you're going to go for your walk. Those things will look different than they did when you were actually at work, for those who are not actually at work anymore. And that's okay, because we are in a new normal, but keep a schedule. Don't just loaf around in your pajamas all day. And even if you do the I'm dressed from here up deal, maybe on at least a couple days out of the week, get dressed fully. That shifts your mind. Okay, so keep a schedule. Stay informed about what's going on, with the virus and politically and all of that good stuff, but you do want to set limits around the news watching. So for some people, when they're watching the news, that especially if there's something tragic or traumatic that has happened, watching the video of it, your mind cannot tell the difference between video and real life. If it's seeing the video, it feels like it's happening right now because it's in color, it's live and in color, it's video, it's right there, right? It's going on. But if you see a still shot, your brain automatically knows that that is past, because you can't have a still shot photo in the present. So just that little change right there can help shift how pulled into all of the things you get to be. For some people, they've recognized that I can't watch the news. And if there's something big going on, I know somebody's going to tell me about it. So, gauge where you are with that. Do something meaningful. This is huge because there is so much meaningful work that could be done. I mean, so participating in something like all of you all are doing today, this is something that could be meaningful. Do something that will matter to yourself, that will matter to another person, that will matter in the future. That shifts your mindset from all of the that's going on right now. Connect with other people. And I know a lot of times people will say, it's not the same. It's not, when we're doing it like this, it's not the same. And you're right, it's not. So we've got to manage that expectation. No, it will not be like before, but nothing is like before. So to say that I can't connect, or I don't really do that whole Zoom thing with friends and stuff because it's not like being with them, I agree with you. It is not like being with them, and you still need to do it. Okay, let's keep going. Check in with your older adults too, because they may not be as tech friendly. So check in with those older adults and make sure that that they're doing okay. Make sure that they really are fine. And sometimes they just want to tell you about the soap operas, as they call it, or the stories that they were watching, or they may just want to hear your voice. just check in with them, make a phone call, send a letter, and we'll talk about some of that other stuff of how to connect with other people. If you're creative, go and create, please. Go and be fabulous. All of the, during all of the unrest in the summer, all of the murals that came up downtown, I was just like, this is beautiful. And these people did this like that because it was their thing. That was they did. That was what they did. Creative people create. So what has happened with some creatives during this time is they have gotten like you know, off. They're feeling the weight of everything, and so they've put the paintbrush down, they've put the sketch pad down, they've put everything down. Pick it back up. That is your gift. That is your, like Cherie was saying, that's your gift in the chaos. People need that right now. They need to see something beautiful. And what you do innately, what you do naturally is beautiful. So go share that with the world. That's meaningful. Go share that. Okay? Distract yourself. So if that means reading a book, if that means finding an online book club, if that means any number of things that it means, that you want to distract yourself from what's going on just so that you can make it to the next day. We won't be in this forever, but we want to make it through this so we can get to forever. Okay. And then plan for the future. That will help you to get out of now and say, okay, when all of this is gone, I'm going to add that sunroom onto the back of the house. Or when all of this is over, I'm going to go back to school. Or when all of this is over, I'm going to make sure that I still make time to call those elders that I checked in with when I was saying connecting with others. Or I'm going to make sure that I write thank you notes much more. I've been getting so many more thank you notes, and I'm like, oh, this is a lost art. We need to get back to this. So just find those ways of connecting with individuals. And then finally, this is my, practice self-compassion. Sorry, I forgot that last bullet. Like I was saying earlier, be nice to yourself. Just bottom line, be nice to yourself. Last slide here, we want to look at some ways of expressing kindness with yourself and with others. This is my pro tip for that. We have got to practice using empathy, not sympathy, but empathy everywhere. And empathy is, you know, stepping in that situation that someone else is in as if it's your own situation. You step in it and then you step back out. So sympathy would be if you stepped in it and you stayed in there. But empathy is I'm going to step in and then I'm going to step back out. And stepping in allows me to feel it like they're feeling it. And that shifts your mind. That shifts what you think, that shifts how you feel, and then that shifts what you do. So the exercise is, y'all didn't know I was giving you homework, did you? Get one of your most precious loved ones in your mind right now, just real quick. That's your child, that's your parents, that's that sweet lady that you volunteered the job with, that's that dutiful gentleman at the job. Just get somebody that you love and care about in your mind really quickly right now. So with that person in mind, recognize that the things that you say to other people, okay, it didn't slide in. Let me try it again. The things that you say to other people, I want you to regularly practice thinking about how you would feel if you heard someone making a specific comment, maybe that you're just randomly making to someone or randomly making about someone. Practice, how would you feel if you heard someone making that statement about that person that you just got in your head? If you would be mad that someone was making that statement about this beloved person, then it is not okay for you to make that statement about anybody. Not in the same, even if it's truth. Sometimes we try to hide behind that and say, well, it's the truth. It is the truth. But there are a lot of truths that go, you know, without us having to say it, even though we know that it's something that's true. So if you have to say it, check your tone behind it. Check your intensity behind it. Check your motive behind it. You know, did you mean something good when you said that, even though it was truth? Did you really mean that person well? Or are you just being snippy? We've got to be nicer these days, you all. So finally, I can remember just recently, a friend of mine was telling me their son was at a baseball game, was playing in a baseball game. And the parents, y'all, so this person was playing at, this child was playing at a school baseball game, and the parents were jeering at the child. I said, where do they do that? The parents were jeering at the child, calling the child names, making statements about the child. That's not okay. And I know if people were making those same statements about their child, they would have been hot. They would have been livid. So if you don't want it's the same thing. If you don't want someone saying that about your child, you can't say it about anybody else's. So that's my final pro tip. Practice using empathy. That's how we connect with the kindness. That's how we get back there. Okay, I hope I have not overstayed my welcome, but I surely do appreciate the invite. And so I think we're moving to questions.
Yes, Dr. Funderburk, thank you so much. And again, wow. But I have to say, I have to put this from a personal perspective for your presentation. I wish I had seen the slides on grief this time last year. We, Guilford Metro lost one of our active duty employees tragically. And as the leader of the organization, I didn't feel like anybody needed to see my grief. I needed to be there for everybody else. And so it was a very hard time for me. And those were really good tips. So from a personal perspective, I truly appreciate that.
Absolutely.
The I'm fine picture at the beginning of it, so many of those things within that, the word fine is really how it is. It's not fine. It's depressed. It's anxious. It's so many of those other things that you highlighted. Thank you so much. So we will now have an opportunity for the audience to ask questions with our presenters. First, I do want to thank each of you for the information you have provided today, both Cherie and Dr. Funderburk. I personally have learned so much, and I hope those who have joined us today were inspired as well. You can submit your questions in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself and speak up, however you feel most comfortable.
Hold on, I'm gonna check the chat. I had a few questions, but you ladies have done such an amazing job presenting. You've actually addressed them. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions? I know we're close for time. Oh, here's one. So we have a question. How do you help someone that you know is hurting, but you don't want to overstep boundaries? That's a great question. For either of you that want to take that.
Sure. I know I was talking about boundaries a little bit, and I think that anytime that we are speaking our truth, if it's, you know, I need some distance here, and you're doing that in a polite way, we don't have control over how the other person's going to receive it, how they're going to react. But if you know that you're doing it from a place that is a yes to you, even though it might be a no, setting a boundary with them, it can feel uncomfortable. It can feel awkward to do that at first. But if you know you're doing it with respect and care for yourself, respect for this other person, then know that you're not doing anything wrong by stating the boundaries that you need. And maybe you can also invite the conversation, depending on, I guess, who it is and the kind of relationship there. I'm sorry, I focus so much on boundaries. Help someone. Sorry, the question: how do you help someone that you know is hurting, but you don't want to step your boundaries? I'm guessing step on their boundaries. So let me know if I'm answering this. So I think you can always let them know, I see that you're going through a difficult time. Please know that I am here to listen, because we don't have to have the answers. We don't have to, do something that's going to make them feel better, because we can't magically do that, but we can listen. And like Dr. Funderburk was saying, honor what's happened, right? Honor the experience. We don't have to have the magic words. But those are my thoughts. I'll let Dr. Funderburk speak to that too.
Okay, yeah. So just briefly, I would agree with everything that that you just said, and it can be difficult in that type of situation because you don't really know, which way to go. So I would say to be that warm place, that soft place for them continuously, like always be that warm place for them, because sometimes you can put yourself out there and they might be a little rude, depending on what their pain is. They might just respond to you out of their pain in a snippy kind of snappy way. And so check yourself there. If you're really wanting to help, don't allow that to just make you go away and stay away forever. Be that warm place for them, so that later on when they come back to you, they know that you are still there. They know that, okay, now is not the time, but it's okay. So maybe you just you send them a card in the mail, so that way they don't have to talk to you about it, but they can see your concern. Or what is it that would be helpful for them? Do they need not for you to call them, but do they need for you and maybe a couple of other friends to set up a meal train for them and bring food so that they don't have to cook because of whatever the thing is that they're going through? So I would just say continuously be that warm, soft place for them, so that whenever they are ready, you've got it already there, already set up, no judgment. And you might have to check that, because when somebody comes at you in a rude, snippy way, it can be easy for your to rise up. But just recognize that was the pain. That was not them. That was the pain. And your whole goal, based on what, a lot of us will say is, I want to help.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to help, you got to check that. I know go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. This has been so wonderful. You guys have left us with so much helpful information. I encourage everyone to reach out to them. Again, we're going to address that in the email. So again, thank you to both of you ladies, Cherie and Dr. Funderburk. We offer our thanks to everyone who attended today. As you can tell from today's event, we have an opportunity to lead calmer and healthier lives with these new practices. I'm energized, and I hope you are too. Be on the lookout for a follow-up email. It will contain a recording of today's message, and we encourage you to share this with everyone. We also will share links to Cherie and Dr. Funderburk's websites for more information on how to contact them directly with additional guidance. Together, we will overcome COVID-19 and learn new ways to live a more balanced life, even in these uncertain times. In closing, I want to thank United Way of Greater Greensboro for working to create partnerships that are ending poverty in our community. And I also want to thank them for their leadership to address emotional wellness and resiliency and provide tools to lift us all up in our community. Thank you for joining us, and we invite you to learn more about Women United and get involved in this powerful work. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.